watching television and you can see what's going on across the water, then everything from Fukushima to what's happening in Paris puts everybody on edge. If New York thinks it's the last time that the storm arrives at Battery Park or the last time that Coney Island floods, you've only fooled you. If you think in Los Angeles that the drought's going to be finished anytime soon and that when the big earthquake comes, it's going to snap off a big piece of dry sponge, then you only fooled you. It's all happening. And I think you get a lot of folks who are very much on edge, and we end up spending a lot of our time individualized in our own compartments. All right. I personally march around in the house cursing everyone of treachery and betrayal up until I actually see him. And then hey, Jeremy, how are you? Linda, how have you been? And it's all forgotten. With Eddie Van Halen. If it's treachery and betrayal and you saw, oh my God, he's at the door. Ed, how are you? And it's all forgotten and I feel like I'm back in high school again. All right. The year after high school was a better year. True. But there's subjects that are a little bit, that sometimes, cause an awareness in people that they aren't familiar with, but that you forgot. These are things that you already know. And there are ideas that, for example, everything that I share with you from this point on was shared with me by an instructor, or at least two different instructors in two different unrelated training evolutions. And that involves aviation, what we do on the ground, what we do in terms of field craft and camping, communications, et cetera, et cetera. And all of these are great big words for things you already own, things you already know. And once you actually start getting a little bit operative on these things, you're no longer just watching the television and getting jumpy and nervous. You become proactive. Peace, love, and heavy weapons, baby. This is the combat hippie part of the David Lee Roth gig here. It's not really a show. Think of it more like an infomercial. Okay? In the West Coast, what we're going to be experiencing more than likely will be the calamity called earthquake. It's going to be the storm, or something's going to happen in Japan, nuclear-wise, and then float over and cause the water systems to burst, or the drought is going to cause the land to dry out and like a piece of sponge, and that'll snap off when the earthquake happens, and then the plumbing gives up and the highways, etc., etc. East Coast, you have, we experience everything from the storms, Battery Park and Coney Island. It's just a matter of time. We've seen all the documentaries and everything that happens in between, not including man-made. I haven't even approached man-made, like what has just been happening in France and all over the Mideast. I think it's probably just a matter of time before that finally reaches our shores. 9/11 is not that long ago. And in terms of what people are able to do with the internet and the digital and so forth, I'm not here to sell panic. I'm here to sell remedy. I'm here to sell an idea that you can work on and that give you some solace, perhaps, once people start to work together and think about it. It's called Everybody Has a Job. Everybody's got a gig. And we used to call it Neighborhood Watch or Welcome Wagon, but more than just peeking out of the drapery now is, once a building goes down in the United States, particularly if it's in the financial district in New York City or some such, a lot of things change all the way across the board in the United States. The entire comedy begins in terms of the economy, all right? When the earthquake comes, first thing that's going to do is the plumbing's going to blow. I don't care if you live in an apartment building or if you live in a little house. And in the California area, at least the Southern California area, we invented the idea of the crack house. We didn't say crack apartment. We said crack house because even crackheads can afford a tiny little house. Groucho Marx said you can get many different kinds of houses here. You can get plaster, you can get wood, or you can get stucco. Oh, how you can get stucco. Those little stucco sheds from 100 years ago. My sister lives in one, and they're great, and they are all over Southern California. Each one has its own plumbing. It has its own sprinkler system. It has its own water spigot. It all connects to the center, with the main piping that runs in the middle of the street. And a lot of people in New York City don't understand what it means when they say steam coming up from the middle of the street in a manhole cover in the middle of the night in the winter. They make great black and white photos, and you see that steam rising and so forth. What most folks don't realize is that the old steam pipes, there's just one main steam pipe running up the middle of that boulevard, and all of the buildings tap into it. So if something happens to that one main artery there, That's it for heating in every single building that it was connected to. And that's thousands and thousands of restaurants, apartments, rooftops, officing, etc., etc. It all just goes off. All right. And the idea of this brings most folks to a stop because there's nobody telling us what to do. I'm here to tell you what to do. And the very first thing we'll do at the Roth infomercial, okay, is you ain't going nowhere if your feet is no good. You got to have your feet right. I can't explain that enough, all right? If your feet are wet, you're going to want to go to the bathroom. You won't know why. But this hails back to the old college trick of, Reggie passed out again from drinking too much cerveza, and you dip his hand in a little thing of warm water and he pees his pants. There is some mental thing there that if your feet are wet, you're going to feel like you got to go to the bathroom at every given moment, and you won't know why. And that's going to be a problem right after the big earthquake because everybody is going to be wanting to go to the bathroom everywhere, and that's an even bigger problem than I feel like discussing right now, okay? Got to get your feet dry. And that means you set up a kit. A go kit. It's not a crash kit. That's something else. We'll discuss that another time. But a go kit is, okay, we got to go. Go where? Out of the house, out of the apartment. We got to go. We got to go to where the helicopters are landing. We got to go to where people are collecting to get on the bus. We got to go to the grocery. We got to go to the pharmacy. I got to go to the bathroom. Well, that's usually not right where you're standing. And there's a lot of people who are going to think that is right where you go to the bathroom. Uh-oh. We talk about a go kit, and the kit usually spells out visually what is the bag that everything goes into, and it's not the kind of bag you think. Most people will grab a backpack like we use for walking around the university campus, or will grab just a shopping bag or two. You know, a lot of people use paper bags because that's what's laying around. We go, some human basics or whatever. It starts with something that can be dragged along the floor by at least just one person easily, okay? The best bags that I found are hockey bags. You can get this from sports stores, all right, particularly in cold weather country, wherever. You can find it on the internet, and goalie bags, you can get your whole body into a goalie bag. Think how big goalie equipment is. Those big knee pads and the giant arm pads and everything. That's all got to fit into one giant duffel bag that one guy drags with him, the goalie. Or your go kit. And this is also what I use on the road. I call it the new soft luggage. Yeah, and you can get a whole person into it. I've actually proven that. Don't ask me how. Okay, ask me how. And whatever part of the bag you don't use, you can just roll it up, etc. Okay, it will shape to whatever part of the pickup truck you're trying to force it into. It will shape according to whatever part of the pile you're piling it up and away from, okay? And when you're done, you can roll it up into a little thing and use it as a pillow. Remember that one, okay? When you pack your bag, okay, the best ones have handles on both ends. You can find these really easily, all right? And the zippers are super heavy duty. That's important. If you're just buying travel gear, whatever, that ain't made for the big adventure. And the zippers are the first things to go, okay? Goalie bags have pockets along the sides, etc. You know who else, another kind of gig that I use is Scuba gear, okay? Like Aqualung makes really cheap, big, they're made out of nylon bags that have wheels on the bottom, like you see people dragging through the airport, okay? But they're totally waterproof because when you go scuba diving, you're throwing your wetsuit and the regulator and the blah, blah, blah. Everything is full of salt water, etc., and sand, and it's made for that. And because of that, it's a smaller market and therefore cheaper, not more expensive. It's like the bass speakers that I have at my house. They're Sherwin-Vega and they're made for the movie theater. Nobody buys them, so they're really, really cheap. And you can get your whole body into one. I'm not kidding. I'll show you a picture. They're about $250 a piece. Of course, the truck to get it into your house is $500 each way, and then you got to tip the guys, and so forth. But true. So when you're buying sports gear for actual travel, adventuring, camping like this, if you kind of change the context a little bit, to get that hockey bag going, and it's something that can be dragged. It's also waterproof. It's designed for sweaty, ready, dirty, whatever, and everything is going to be just like that. So one of the things that you want to pack also is going to be as the heaviest plastic garbage bags that you can. Not a fistful, but a couple of boxes of them, okay? Because that's going to be your bathroom later. That's going to be a very special episode. We'll get to that one a little bit later. Once everything is done with your go bag, you put the whole bag inside one of those 50-gallon trash bags and seal it at the top, because you got to expect to find everything floating in the basement. Okay? No matter what it is that you pack, expect to find it floating, like out of a comic book. You take 5 steps down into the basement, and everything you packed is floating. Now we begin to understand, okay? So as soon as your whole go cat, as soon as your whole go bag is done, it goes into one of those giant heavy-duty plastics, and you seal that up as well. When you retrieve and you pull that back, you save the bag because it's a real good raincoat. And for people who showed up who didn't get ready and have no sleeping bag and no water and no blah, 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 they get the plastic bag. Survival of the fittest. Survival of the readiest. I used to be a Boy Scout. I still am. Boy, am I prepared. Best socks that you want are wool. We all know about polypropylene and capylene and all the enes and all of the synthetics and everything, okay? But the number one that's going to hold the heat when it's wet, that's number one, because there's no avoiding getting your feet wet. You dry them, you got to put dry socks on, and then they're going to get wet again. It's the prep that changes everything, okay? Because wool will keep your feet warm even though they're soaking wet inside the shoe. This goes back to old sailor stuff. When, you look at Master and Commander of the Far Side of the Earth and whatnot, those guys never dried their clothes. The only time that they got dry is when they slept in it and their body heat caused enough heat that they would evaporate out. But it's all salt water, so they're always clammy. The entire trip took 2 years to get to Japan. Yeah, okay. So wool pays off, because if you have wool breeches and you got a wool jacket, and this leads to, oh my God, what did it smell like down there? Because they're camping out with geese and cows and for the milk and whatnot in the quarters down below on those old sailing ships and whatnot. But wool, even when it's soaking wet with salt water, is going to retain enough heat that you can get yourself to sleep. Okay, so you want to get real wool, those boring old gray wool socks. People like Cabela's and, the different shops and everybody sells them. Modern places have great stuff, but it's not calamity-bound gear. It's gear for camping. It's gear for recreation. It's gear for real life. And we're talking about when the event comes, okay? And even if it never comes, you gave yourself some focus. You gave yourself some train of thought, some vision as to what can be done, and you're making preparation, and you're not doing it alone. You're doing it with other folks. And as you continue, you do it with more and more folks. It's the Israeli approach. Everybody's got to have a job. One person in charge of provisions, but once everybody's all dressed up, where are they going to sleep? One person in charge of where everybody sleeps. Wait a minute, I got a dog, and I'm in charge of first aid. Where do I drop my dog off? The dog lady. We'll talk about all that as we go, okay? And these are things that I've learned all throughout of Jesus, starting in the early 70s and carried on all throughout rock and roll, all the way up to, my EMT training and, all of that rigmarole. That's well-known campfire stuff. But how does it apply today? How do these old stories apply to today? Wool socks, boring, gray, fat wool, and you can try it, man. When you get your boots, first thing you want to worry about is when the pipes burst. Because if you live in an apartment like I do on the East Coast, or you live in an old place like I do on the West Coast, first thing that's going to go is the pipes, just like Mom. Just like me, from what the doctor says, but I don't believe him. Really. And when the pipes go, you're going to need different boots than those Timberlands, and you're going to need more than one pair of those boring gray wool socks I just told you about, okay? You're going to need some of those knee highs that you can get at Osh, Orchard, or one of those cheap places. In Japan, it's Seketsu. That's their version of Orchard Supply, janitorial, whatever. Everybody's got it. But you can get real cheapy ones that you can put your feet in without the shoe, and that fits nice. Or you can get the kind that you can use over your shoe, okay? Galosh style. But that's the first thing that you're going to put on, because when the pipes burst, woo-wee, it's going to get all over everything, okay? That includes your faucets, your sprinklers, your toilets, the hot water heater, everything that is H2O inclined is going to explode. Everything's going to move around like a big jarring shock, okay? And doesn't matter if it's seawater eroding it away in Miami, or if the earthquake tremors, break it in half like it did at my house on the big one a number of years ago, or what invades the shores in New York City or DC and so forth. We've all watched Inconvenient Truth. How do you get ready for it? Get the right socks, get the right boots. You're going to need enough for everybody, and everybody isn't just you and your old lady. Everybody is when the neighbors come and knocking next door, and they go, "Oh, Mr. Roth, yeah, we're sorry, yeah, it's us from next door, the ones whose kids were throwing the rocks over that almost hit your dog, and we were playing the music and everything, we were yelling your name and everything, and so forth." He said, "Well, we're sorry, but we got some old folks next door. We got some grandparents. We have 5 generations living in the house next door. Yeah. And they're freezing. And could we possibly borrow a couple of sleeping bags? Because we saw you have a few sleeping bags piled up. Oh, thank you very much." And they track everything that just blew up out of those pipes all the way back into where they're camping out, okay? That's just the first family who's coming over. So you better get enough boots for everybody who's in the general area, all right? And then you're going to practice it the way the Japanese do. You take your shoes off before you come indoors, homie, because I know what you just walked through to get here. I helped contribute to it over the last few weeks, especially if there's cesspools around here, okay? Hey, I'll spare you the grisly details, all right? But you got to go Japanese on the motherfucker, guaranteed. Everybody, before you start tracking that shit into the campsite, and I mean that literally, all right? And now you got to manage the animals. Do you have dogs? I do. You got to watch out for that as well, all right? But once you've got your rubber boots all set up, who makes great ones too is, again, the camping stores. Bass Pro and Cabela's is one of my favorite. If you get on the internet, you can see that they make boots for turkey hunting or whatever. I'm not a hunter or whatever. Those are stronger, and you can really just kind of walk around all day in those. Those are actual like work shoes that are boots, and a lot of them are made for the cold. Is it going to be cold when the catastrophe happens? Okay, I'm going to tell you when trouble strikes. It's going to happen on the night there's no moon. It's going to be freezing ass cold. It's going to be pouring rain. It's going to be snowing. It's going to be windy, and it's going to be unbelievably humid and hot, about 130 degrees because of global climate change. Okay, you live exactly where 4 different maps connect. Okay, the little tiny spot where there is nothing, when you put 4 maps together and they join in the middle corner, that's where your town is. And it has no name, and it's on a hill with not even a number. Okay, so you're going to be hard to find, and there's a fire. Fire! You got to get ready for all of that, and you think of it as a challenge, okay? We all love the reality shows, etc. It becomes the challenge, and it starts with your feet, okay? The kind of shoes that you wear, tennis shoes, it's not going to work for you. You want to get a real boot. You get something that has some support into the ankle, because you're going to be lifting and carrying. That's all I did as an EMT, is lift and carry. I lifted people out of bathtubs. I lifted them out of the ocean. I lifted them off of park benches, and I lifted them out of the basement, okay? I'm a professional lifter, all right? I can tell you straight away, you're going to be doing a lot of that. So you want something that goes up over the ankle. All right, doesn't have to be expensive. Red Wing, something like that. Classic work shoe, and you're going to be living in it, so you want it insulated, even if you're out in the tropics, okay? Because if you're moving around in the tropics, again, those of us who've made the classic error, and I've done it a million times, of taking a shower, coming out of the ocean, I brush my hair back, get in the hammock, and wake up with a monster fucking cold. Okay? Same thing can happen with your feet. If you're not careful, you'll think, oh man, it's Florida. It's the middle of the summer, whatever. And you brush your hair back and you ain't got no socks, no shoes on. You climb into the hammock and you wake up with Aqualung, my friends. That's where that song comes from. Miami. Didn't know that? Okay. Well, it didn't, but if it did, true story. You go to sleep in a hammock. I was in the Amazon. I slept in the exact same socks that I was telling you about, and man, inevitably the breeze would pick up and you start sweating, or you're in vapor. The ozone is happening. You get where the waters collide and there's mist, and you wake up covered like somebody was spraying you with ice cold water. Inevitably, you'll get sick. I got so sick in the Amazon from that, I thought I was going to die. I wrote about it in my book, actually. We found a tiny little infirmary, miles away from the headwaters town of Manaus, which in the middle of the 80s wasn't much of a town. It was just it's an airport. I remember landing, there was a wreckage that was still burning off to the left. Oh, yeah, welcome. And then from there, we found a boat. We didn't have any charter or anything. We literally went into the harbor, pirate style, and went from boat to boat. It's boat folks, boat people. And said, who's going about that way? And spent weeks heading up towards Iquitos and going up the Amazon. We had no idea where we were going. I got sick within about 4 days from exactly what I'm talking about. I climbed into a hammock with wet hair and without any socks or anything on, thinking it's the middle of the jungle. It's stifling, unbelievably hot. And I really thought that I was going to see the other side before that trip was over. So I've made every mistake in the book 4 times. You can take my word for it.
You're my one desire. Hey.
we were talking about getting ready for the big event. I call it the big event because here it could be earthquake. It's going to be earthquake. It's going to be floods. It's going to be the mud dump. It's going to be the forest fire. It's going to be the parchment farm breaking off like a piece of dry sponge, and then the mud dump that's going to stop the traffic, which means you can't get to the hospital. So the electricity goes out, and the first thing that always falls apart is going to be the plumbing, the sewage, the swimming pools, and anything that has to do with hydraulics, because those are all under pressure and stress and underground anyway. You with me so far here? Okay. Folks, I was just watching on television last night. Folks are wandering around waist deep in the Carolinas in exactly everything I described in the previous episode, okay? In case you thought I was kidding about everything floating, and I brought up the idea of master and commander of the far side of the earth. And when you see down and below in the ship, and it's going from right to left, and everything is swinging because it's all hanging from the ceilings, there's a reason for that, and the reason is the floor is completely flooded in most of those ships, at least 1 inch deep in something horrifying, and in a bad storm the ship leaks and it's 1.5 feet deep. That doesn't even include the bilge, which is completely on the bottom and has to be pumped out. The general living quarters, the reason guys walked around barefoot, there was a reason for that. Nothing would dry out ever, and if you were made the mistake of wearing shoes, well, what good are they after the first good rock and roll in a wooden boat, okay? Carolinas are experiencing exactly the same kind of a thing, all right? So I'm going to jump around. Usually if I'm going to describe this to somebody who has an interest in it, I like to work from the ground up. What are you doing with your shoes? Something that everybody in the Carolinas are doing right now is they're discovering that the tennis shoes are no good. And if those are what you have to use, you're going to be washing them every night after wandering around in, let's not go into that again, okay? And you're going to want to throw your shoelaces away. After a point in time, those shoelaces are going to fall apart. I've had shoes, even the best hiking, Nike, Adidas, whatever stuff, depending on what you're wandering around in, and you're wandering around in a lot of synthetics, we'll call it that, okay? Seriously, because when the neighborhood floods, that's everything that comes out of everybody's basement, that comes out of everybody's closets, that comes out of everybody's underneath the sink. Just think about what's underneath the most common sinks, okay? All of that falls apart. Anything glass breaks apart, and that's what's rolling around in the streets. And when you see it on the news, it kind of looks like fun. It looks like, okay, the streets are flooded waist deep and you can float around in a boat, and that's kind of a 12-year-old's, that's sort of fantasy or something. It's sort of like living on the bayou, Huck Finn style, until you smell what's going on there. You can't smell what's going on television, and that's a big, big issue. Anytime there's a big event, first thing that's horrifying is the smell. So I'm going to jump around. Instead of just staying with shoes and boots and so forth, one thing that we routinely would use in EMT when we had to deal with a fire, and the fires are always in apartment buildings, okay? And when you get people, folks, friends and loved ones who got burned up or whatever, woo, you know what that smells like. Also, when you start burning stuffing and insulation and, that old building materials and stuff from the turn of the century, and I was working around the boroughs in New York. I was working in East New York, Queens, Bed-Stuy, the Bronx, Yonkers, you name it, and there's a lot of old going on, and when it torches, oh man, the smell is pretty rotten. Also, and this is the David Lee Roth show, okay, so I can kind of cut to the crash on some other things. When somebody, and this is clearly evident to me now, when somebody points a gun at you and actually pulls the trigger, two things happen. A bullet leaves the barrel and you poop your pants. So, and that's when they call the ambulance, traditionally, historically. And when you have to deal with any of the aforementioned, because it's our job to pitch in or whatever, here's the next thing. And the folks in the Carolinas and everybody else who dealt with Katrina, Galveston, and what's coming up here in Los Angeles, because the El Nino is coming. Si viene. When it does, it's going to rain and rain, and there's going to be flash floods. All of the mud is going to start flowing onto because the land is all dried out and the trees aren't holding the dirt. So all of that's going to fall onto the Pacific Coast Highway and all of the highways, anything that is even slightly hilly. The parts I hate when I'm walking the dog in the morning? Any part like that is going to have a flash flood and a mudslide, okay? And the LA River, which is routinely empty and not ready for any kind of flooding. In fact, it's a great campsite down there right now. If you're homeless and if you've got a great bike path, I was down there recently, okay? The Great Huron Gate is off of Fletcher Drive there. It's one of the best bike paths anywhere. I've been all over the world on that bicycle. And yeah, that's superb. But it's got trees and green and there's catfish and everything down there. It's not ready for the kinds of flooding that's going to happen. And that's going to create damage and so forth all on its own. And man, it's all going to smell, because then when it floods up, everybody's washing machine drift, everybody's what's left over from the washing machines, and especially the industrial washing machines that take care of all of our hospitals and all of our veterans and old folks home and young folks home and the foster homes and the prisons and the jails and everything like that. That's industrial strength laundry, and that's a lot of that. When those pipes give, you're going to be real thankful you did what I tell you next here. And we did this in the ambulance teams routinely. You get paper surgeon's masks. Get the ones that you can find at Duane Reade, CVS. You can get it at Walmart, anywhere that's a pharmacy or whatever. If you're dealing with, you can find it at the general pharmacy. And they're disposable and they're paper. And it's just like you see the doctors wearing, and the nurses wearing and whatever. And then you get some Vicks Vapo Rub. People try and use other things, perfumes and whatever. Those aren't meant to be inhaled from a quarter inch away. Vicks Vapo Rub is meant to be put right up in your nose, and then everything smells like Vicks. You smear it on the inside of the mask, and when you're done with it at the end of the day, you can toss the mask. Or if you're in dire straits, you can keep that mask for quite a while, okay? You will thank me, you will thank me, you will thank me for that idea. Second up is everybody who's crawling around in the water trying to locate the family photo album, the family Bible, any lost members of the family, the pet lizard food, where is the light that keeps the pet lizard warm. All of this is floating around in the basement somewhere down there. And I'm going to recommend that not only do you get yourself a box of those masks, but you get yourself a pair of good gloves. And the gloves can come from Orchard Supply. They can come from any kind of a gardening supply or whatever. But here's the kind you want to get. Everybody sees the gloves that soldiers are using or that a lot of motorcyclists use, and they have the plastic on the knuckles. You think that's for boxing. It's not. It's for when you're holding something, okay, like a friend or a loved one or a kid or your precious stereo, and you trip and you fall. What's the first thing that's going to hit that pavement? Is the back of your hands. Get yourself a pair of those gloves with as heavy the plastic that covers your knuckles, you follow, and both sets of those knuckles, it's going to look like you're ready for a gladiator fight, and if you make the appropriate face and noises, you can scare away bad people. But that's not what it's for. That's why motorcyclists wear it. It's not designed to look like a road warrior, which it does. It's designed that when you fly off that motorbike, if you're going over 60, you actually have enough time to bring your hands up, cover your face, and hit the pavement. It's all going to feel about that slow, okay? It's called tachypsychia. Everything slows down because it's inevitable. And if you're wearing one of those cool motorcycle helmets, like I see some of the fellas wearing, like from Triumph Bonneville days in the 50s or 60s, where it's more like a football helmet with a full-length plastic visor, it's absolutely worthless in terms of personal security, okay? And when you go flying over your handlebars at 60 and everything slows down, you're going to put your hands up to cover your face, and you're going to smash the backs of your hands right into that pavement, and you're going to thank Diamond Dave for that second idea.
concerns my brother, who still had played violin. Woo! Got it in his head that an IQ was all you need. He went his way, I couldn't discover mine. I didn't worry if I ever saw him again. He's made a profit while I don't even own the pocket. And the last I heard, he was sitting at the top of the tree. Wait a minute. Late last night, reading my underground prayers, came a knock on the door, thought it was a Third World War. Lord above, I did not recognize him. I said, have a cup of coke, kid, maybe that's all you need. He said, the smell of the city, kid, it's trying to kill me. My eyes are getting muddy, Christ, I'm aging fast. With my kind of music, I knew it wasn't gonna be simple. But have a quick listen, kid, maybe that's all you need.
Around my house at rush hour, the 5 o'clock rush hour, and the sun starts to go down in the wintertime, particularly if you're watching the monitors, like for the cameras at the gate and stuff, it looks like Walt Disney. I have a family of 5 raccoons. I have a family of 9 possums. I've got squirrels. I've got birds. I've got skunks. It's like a fucking Disney movie. Okay? It's like Fantasia. And they all come out with impunity, slowly, because I've never let the gardeners poison them or anything. And they know that's kind of a sanctuary area, all right? And all of those critters are going to still be there at lunchtime when the big calamity happens, okay? So this is when the go bag, which has been put into a plastic bag, all right? What we did in order to deal with all the wildlife, because where we live, there's a lot of trees and shrubs. You can hear coyotes at night. People's dogs are going to escape very readily. A lot of people are going to let their dogs and cats go because they don't have enough food or they don't want to deal with them. Not everybody loves their dogs and cats, perhaps the way they should or the way I do. And the first thing they do is go, fuck it, let him loose. He's a dog. He'll be able to find his own food. And as the sun comes down, that marvelous teriyaki drift coming from House 12 on Block 3 is going to be picked up by canine noses long before the rest of us recognize that somebody somehow started a barbecue somewhere. You follow me? I'm being poetical here. What we did is we took plastic garbage cans, again, with the kind just simple, basic, easy throwaway, and that's what the Go Kit goes into. All right. I've seen some pretty colorful emergency situations now as an EMT, and I've been all over the world, more not rock and roll than with rock and roll. Out of my 42 stamps, maybe 20 of them were rock and roll. The rest of it was, pretty much third world, outdoor, field craft, inner city through places that, everything from kayaking around New York when it was not the thing to do to, all through Polynesia, etc. What happens when there's a fire or what happens when there is a civic disturbance, etc., is a lot more real. It's a lot more technical than you think, okay? And it's as technical as get ready when the pipes burst. I can't share that with you enough because everything is going to have to get hung up as well. The reason that I use the garbage cans is because once I open up all the food, and particularly dog food, okay, where's it going? It goes into the trash cans, and then I can cap them and even hang them. I use old climbing ropes. From times, rock climbing, etc. It's 165 feet of free. You can pretty much hang a Volkswagen off of that. Anything that is clotheslining, etc. But you got to get ahead of that. Get way, way, way ahead of that. And if you got a few dollars in your pocket, the nylon tape that's 1 inch or 2 inch wide, and you use that for strapping things down, etc. Get a roll of that and get as much duct tape as you can possibly handle. Cases of it, okay? Because you can build anything out of duct tape. You can make a backpack out of it. You can fix your shoes, and you can start to make hanging things, because once the floors become a mess, then everything's got to come up off the floors. Now think again to all the old sailing ship movies that you've seen, and there's a storm, and it cuts downstairs underneath, and all the sailors are gathered, and everything's swinging from the right to the left. There's hams and bananas hanging from the ceiling, and swinging, and nets and tackle and swords and hammocks are swinging from the right to the left. That's where you're going. There's a reason for that. Those boats leaked. Those boats leaked rain, they leaked seawater, they leaked from both ends. I have relatives, older ones, who can attest. And that's seawater, man. It gets worse and worse. It's okay. So it never dries. So whatever's happening is just going to get worse and worse. You've seen the insides of old submarine movies, Das Boot and so forth. Everything is swinging from the ceilings from right to left. There's a reason for that. It's because the floors are awash. It's because the floors are soaking wet. They're more deep than a good Swingles bar on the Upper West Side right about this time on a Saturday night. Of course, that's just, mostly booze and tears. A lot of tears and booze, about 1.5 inches deep. That's why they have rubber mats, okay, for when you work at the bar, all right? It's going to flood up like that, and your whole world is going to do that. So that's where all of your ropes and so forth is going to come from. You want to have a lot of hooks ready, or whatever you can do to get everything up off the floor, and everything that has to stay on the floor, you're going to be really glad you bought 6 of those extra large plastic trash cans, okay? If you have animals, it's going to attract other animals. I don't know. They communicate somehow. And if you open up that dog food, and every dog within 20 other yards is going to know about it and come sniffing around come sundown time. So that's when you put on your trash bag. Now you're nice and warm. Let it rain. Let it rain. Oh, God, I love that song. Anyway, you can feed the dog, and you put on your socks and your rubber boots. Got to deal with long underwear. I don't know that ancient sailors had long underwear to deal with. You can still get just solid wool pants. You can find those like at the REIs and whatever. And the big boys who really spend the longest time but have the least amount of money in the mountains. There are climbing guys like the beach bums, like surfers who live only to surf. There are many guys, they're not bums, they only live to climb. They'll stay around the Himalayas or, the larger mountains, etc., in Yosemite, etc., and they can't afford, they live out of their cars, okay? So the best thing that you can buy then, because the long underwear is going to tear, or it's going to burn, or it's going to, etc., you'll lose it, is a good solid pair of wool pants. That goes on underneath everything. But if you can afford it, long underwear works in a number of different ways. Take a left-hand turn here. In aviation, we have a thing called shrink wrapping. Guys would have hard landings in their helicopters or other aircraft, and because of the thermic situation, the heat, not necessarily fire, but just because of the heat, Capilene and Polypro would melt, and we call it shrink wrapping. It's really hard to get off the skin. It's really dangerous, and it happened so many times that a lot of air wings went into the old warehouses and came up with the old heavy-duty cotton stuff from like Korean War issue. Those old jumpsuits and those old jackets for the pilots, because like old Carhartt gear, which I'm wearing right here, this is farm gear. These are overalls. Carhartt is heavy-duty cotton canvas. It's more like sailcloth or something. These are quilted, but I use this because it doesn't collect animal hair. I'm working with the dogs and whatever, and if you're around animals a lot, then Polypro and Capilene, it absorbs the lint. It'll catch lint. It'll catch dog hair and whatnot. This kind of stuff, it just brushes off. Also, when you tear Polypro, it doesn't tear straight and it'll continue. This kind of stuff, it'll fray, but it'll never tear tear right off of you, all right? So underneath is probably the best thing that I would take with me if I'm putting together a go kit for you is 2 pairs of the regular old union suit, cotton long underwear with the trap door in the back and the buttons in the front, because you know how long it's going to take to dry out in the sun if you put it out on a rope there. If you torch it, the hole doesn't just go right all over everything and turn into a big mess of bubble gum, especially if you're wearing it. Okay. Really, if you're around campfire or anything like that and you actually catch, the edge of your sleeve or something on fire in standard old cotton, you can just bat it out, whatnot. With polypro or capilene, then you're going to have a little bit of problem there. However, polypro capilene will dry itself out while you're wearing it. Even when you're soaking wet, coming from sweat or something like that, then that works in both ways. I don't know, it's like the old joke about the thermos. 2 old hayseeds are sitting on the porch and one says, I think the thermos is the best industrial innovation ever invented by man. And the other one says, how's that, Bob? And he says, because the thermos, if you put cold water in it, it just stays cold. And if you put hot water in it, it just stays hot. And ain't nobody knows how it can tell the difference. Polypro and capilene's the same way. Nobody know how I can tell the difference, but it do. And you can wear it in the summer. I wear it throughout the summer, and I wear it, during the winter because it wicks. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but yeah, that shit rocks. It wicks. And if you get real sweaty, like if you're out moving around or climbing or camping on the bicycle or whatnot, then it stays wet, a little bit like the wool, and then it'll still retain the heat. But if you're just wearing that and it's outdoors, then it'll empty out and you can wear it when it's a lot warmer outside. We're not talking about friendly temperatures, though. Trouble never happens on a good night. You're not going to meet your future mother-in-law the day you're wearing your good suit. Apache Indians used to say that. I know, it sounds a little Jewish, but the Apache Indians did regularly sound Jewish. The day you meet your future in-laws is not the day you got dressed right. It's the day you showed up in your pajamas with a 3-day face. And that's when trouble's coming, okay? When nothing's right, when it's freezing, when everybody's soaked, when everybody's miserable, when nobody wants to get out of bed. It ain't like you're on a scrimmage line and you go 1, 2, 3, go. Rain. If you're going to do pants and a shirt, okay, you can get different weights of the stuff. Okay, if you go like on Patagonia or any other versions of polypro capilene or any of the synthetics like that, I always recommend get the skinny stuff and pile it on like 4 or 5 of them. That way, not because you're layering for better heat or whatever that lesson I was supposed to learn was, it's just because in 2 days you're going to stink and you're going to want to take that one off and put it in the plastic bag. Remember the plastic bags? And now you wear the 4 layers that you got, and when you start to stink, you can take that one off, and now you're wearing 3 layers, and just makes a more practical sense. You can kind of wear everything that you own, because when you're sleeping, God forbid you don't live in an enclave with fences and gates and armed guards or whatever, because everything you're not wearing when you sleep is going to get stolen. Uh-oh, there's that homeless shit. Yeah, we're going to have to live like that. So that's why homeless people wear 9 jackets and 7 pairs of pants and 3 scarves, because if it ain't on you, it's gone in the morning. The guy next to you is wearing it, and he's way bigger, and I hear he carries a knife.
Saturday night at the corner cafe, I had me some drinks and I'm feeling my way. The moon's on the rise and it looks like a night for romance. Shot full in That's right. I'm gonna make it anyways.